I used to see a guy run around our neighborhood. He always carried like a big old stick with him. I was like, why is that guy carrying a stick? Because the dogs. Mm-hmm. Oh, whatever you want, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening and tuning in to Not Your Average Gun Girls. We are taking a more chill vibe approach for this episode. We are just, I kind of like this hanging out on your couch. There's no video this week because we just decided we would just, we just kind of wanted to record some stuff and just talk.
Bring people into what our everyday lives are really like.
And I'm digging this, like, just on our couches, your couch.
I do have to say something funny, though. When you were saying, welcome back to Not Your Average Gun Girls, I got a message from somebody the other day that said, I'm really loving your show. What do they call it? The Not Your Typical Gun Girl, or not your... It was something really funny, and I was like, I like that. I like that name.
You have to find it.
I'll have to find it. And yes, because I was like, it is not your average gun girl, but I do like that, she thought it was something totally different. It's kind of funny.
I know, but I feel like, I love the YouTube aspect because I feel like it connects us with our watchers in a different way, but this is also just kind of nice because I just feel like it's just...
chill and hanging out.
I feel like this is just us hanging out. Well, how it feels.
Well, and there's so many times that we'll be sitting around the dinner table or we'll be sitting on our couch like this, just talking. And we're like, we should just be recording this right now and talking about.
Our husbands are always like, why aren't you guys recording this? Like,
well, I think it goes to show that we'll sit around and we'll talk about things and they say that it's very interesting and we just start laughing. We're like, that's interesting. I don't really know. They're like, no, you guys need to talk about this on the show. So, I guess that means there's a lot of things about us that people don't know. We tried to if you guys didn't catch the episode, we did an episode, like a Q&A, basically get to know your hosts. And I feel like we did reveal a lot of information about ourselves. So if you didn't get a chance to go listen to that, you can go back. What was
I want to say it's like episode 83. I'm not 100% sure. It's in the 80s because it's one of the ones after we relaunched. And I believe we were relaunched at 82. So it's like 83, 84, 85. But we'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, our Abs, our producer, asked us a bunch of questions that we didn't know ahead of time. So you're going to hear everything from like some beauty.
Cringeworthy things we did in high school.
Things from high school, some dating. Just it kind of like all around. So that's why we feel like that kind of stuff, you got to know us, but maybe they just don't get to know us like the hanging out knowing us.
Well, for sure, because just this week, I was driving somewhere and you texted me and you said, oh my God, have you listened to this podcast?
No.
And I think people would be shocked.
So we're going there.
Yeah, we're going there.
Okay.
Oh, we are going there. We have to go there because I think this is a huge part of our life. This was a huge thing that connected us as friends. And don't know if people
don't even know.
And I don't even remember how we figured this out about each other. But Emily and I are unashamed, huge Twilight fans. Like huge. Like to the point where we connected so much on that. We connected on so many things, but it was really that love of Twilight that really brought us even closer together. And
shooting, fashion, and Twilight.
Yeah. Like who would have ever thought? I want to know. It's so funny when I talk about this now because it doesn't seem like this book was that long ago. No. And yet that was a long time ago when the very first book.
But you were Twilight from the beginning, like when it first came out.
I was Twilight during the books. I read all of the books before the actual movie came out. And I remember exactly where I was sitting I read Twilight. I actually went to a physical bookstore. I went to Barnes & Noble. I got it and I didn't leave Barnes & Noble. I posted up on a chair and I sat there and I read, I want to say, one or two of the books there. I'm a really fast reader, but I couldn't put them down and I just went through all of them. So
they're easy reads.
Oh, very easy reads. But where were you when you read the first book? Do you remember?
In my house, but I was past, I want to say I started reading Oh man, this is where I need Ben because he would remember. I think I didn't read till after the first movie came out. That's how, like, I was a latecomer. So I knew like all the craziness that was happening. Everyone was talking about Twilight. And this is like, what was this like way before social media?
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, what is this Twilight? Whatever. And my sister-in-law, so Ben has 3 older brothers. So the youngest, like his next up, I don't know what you call that, but like his wife was reading the books, and I didn't care, whatever. Everyone I knew was reading these books. And then we went on one of like
This
his
vampire
family,
love story book,
right,
which sounds so
family
stupid.
vacations. And his brother, his wife, or his brother's wife, so my brother-in-law, whatever, you guys figured out. We're at the pool and he's reading Twilight. And I'm like, what? I'm like, Ben, is he really reading that? And he's like, yeah. And like, I'm kind of listening to him and his wife talk about it. And I'm like, he's reading this? No way. Like, why is he reading it? So whatever. I don't care. I just like ignore it, just like as another like, it can't be that bad. And then a friend at work was talking about it, and like she was just like, not like, she also like spoke 100 miles an hour, and it was just like all the time. She's like, you gotta read this, you gotta watch, you gotta read. And I'm just like, no, like whatever. And then I believe this is what happened. So Ben and his brothers go on a yearly trip every year, and so on this one particular year, I believe they were going like international, and he was going to be gone for a while. And one of the things that like when he would go on these trips, he would always leave me like a card or something like under my pillow, like as a surprise, something like cute, whatever. This time he left, I want to say the first movie.
Okay.
Maybe the 2 had been out, but I want to say he left
like a DVD.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, back when, there were DVD players, the DVD. Because like I was talking to him about it being like, I don't know, maybe I need to watch this thing. I don't know what this is all about.
Oh my gosh.
So like he's gone, and like I watch it and I'm just like hooked.
I can't, but I'm utterly shocked about that because everybody that loved the books, I mean, to get captured by Twilight from the movie shocks me because I didn't find that it was that, like the first one was that great of a book. I mean, I loved it, but obviously like I loved the book so much more that I don't know if I would have been sucked into the whole,
yeah,
Twilight
but I don't know
thing.
if it was that. It was like I saw the movie and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to read the books now. And see, I never, ever, even now, do I? I don't think I do now. I don't read, what were they calling? Like, what is that? YR? Young adult, or YA, young adult. I remember people
like young adult fiction.
Yeah,
or,
I remember people like using like YA or whatever, something. I was like, I don't know what that
I don't
means.
even remember that.
I think that was like young adult, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, even like fiction. I would always read like either like business books, like things like that. I never really was into like fiction, like those types.
I love fiction novels. I love them.
But I was like, okay, I'm gonna read the book,
Mm-hmm.
and then so that kind of like started
me down
the path of like. I want to say when Breaking Dawn, it was Breaking Dawn came out, and like Target was doing like these midnight releases of like the DVD and like things like that. I was like going there at midnight like a crazy person to buy, first off, this DVD that had like the fake flower from Bella's wedding, like with the DVD.
Like a special edition?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Well, I mean, I feel like, I got caught up in the craze too, to the point where I went with my little sister and this is fun fact. So at this point, my sister was not an actress in LA, like when we were doing this Twilight thing. Edward, or what was his name? Rob Pattinson. Before Rob Pattinson is Rob Pattinson that we all know now. And so he was a nobody. And he came and they were doing like these Twilight tours, and he came to the Galleria Mall. And I was like, sure, Laura, like I'll take you to the mall, because I don't know if she could drive at that point or not, but I was like, yes, I'll take you. And I have always had, another fun fact about me, this knack for getting backstage places. I have been able to talk my way into backstage pretty much everywhere I've gone, except for Hanson. I can't believe I've never been able to talk my way backstage into Hanson. However, I was like, Laura loves this guy. Like, I'm going to get us backstage. Like, we're just going to go. And I remember at the mall, I used to work in malls. So I knew like the back routes, to get to places. And I was like, I have this feeling that he's going to come out on stage back here. We go back there. it's just like two high school guys like guarding the door, and we talked our way in. I ended up making friends with the radio station host that was there that was hosting this whole event, to the point where she gave me the camera and I had to go take photos on stage
Oh my gosh.
of Rob Pattinson, and like got to meet him, got a hug. And then from there, it's just really funny because once my sister moved out to LA, I mean, I've met the whole cast pretty much at this point. And it was just very surreal, like meeting people that were in the movies that you loved.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
it was crazy, but that we bonded over that. And I don't remember at what point in our relationship, Emily, that information came out, but
I want to say it's early on, because I think we probably talk about Twilight like every single time we're together, which is
well, okay, which brings me back to why we were talking about this, because you sent me a text and you were like, have you heard this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this podcast? And I was driving, so I didn't really get to check out what it was, but I hit subscribe unknowing like what I was actually subscribing to. So what is it? What did I just subscribe to?
It's called the Twilight Effect.
Okay.
And so Ashley Green, aka Alice in Twilight, hosts this podcast with, I believe it's her best friend, this girl Melanie, and they basically commentate and talk about Twilight. And
like the movies?
They rewatch the movies, they talk about different scenes. Her friend gets to ask her all these kinds of questions about, what kind of was happening in the scene and just her take on, filming. And then I believe they're also bringing on some of the actors.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are doing this, like doing podcasts, rewatching like their shows, but like,
and then they just sit and talk, like they play clips from the movie.
Yeah,
I'll have to listen to it.
Yeah,
okay. So if you are a Twilight fan, like Emily and I are, maybe you need to go and check out this podcast as well and give us your thoughts on it.
But I think, but I should put this, if we are going out there with us being Twihards, I should just go all out and let people know.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
That I'm so much a Twilight fan. I made Ben and my brother go to Forks.
I love this about you. This makes me love you so much more because of this.
Photos in front of the Welcome to Forks sign. I mean,
did they have the car? Did they have like a reenactment scene, that you could have taken a photo like you were about to get squished between the two cars, but Edward stuck his arm out and stopped the van from squishing her. That would have been so cool.
I went to La Push Beach.
Oh
I did it all. Like really, we were just like, hey, I want to go here if we're going to be here. And like, because my brother lives in Seattle.
Bookstore? Did you go to the bookstore?
We didn't go to the bookstore, but I believe there was like at that time too, tons of like Twilight experiences or like tours
I'm sure
you could go on. I don't know if they still do that now, because I don't know if it's big, but I think, aren't they supposed to be doing like Morning Sun as a movie?
From what I heard, so that I read that somewhere, and I heard it was going to be a massive payday for Rob and for Kristen Stewart.
I mean, but really, are Kristen and Rob really going to come back together after their drama? And now they're both like huge stars.
Huge stars. The other actors are probably like, please do this. Like they really want it. They probably need it. I haven't seen a ton of them in a whole lot of other things, but I'm sure that they're like, please do this movie.
So we know that Jessica, what is her name in real life?
Oh,
Anna Kendrick.
Anna Kendrick. Yeah.
She's done well. And then the girl with the glasses, why can't I remember her name? Jessica. No, not Jessica. Jessica's Angela.
Yeah.
She moved to The Walking Dead.
Yeah, and she used to be really, her and my little sister were like best friends. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. That's when my sister actually got to go up to Vancouver when they were filming. I don't remember which one, maybe the second one or maybe like the third one. And that's when she met everybody, like, and got really close with several of the like castmates. Like she got to know them really well, but yeah, she went up there and watched them film. And at that point I was like, oh,
so people go
fun.
Listen to our podcast, but also go watch or listen to the Twilight Effect.
Go and listen to that. I guess like why we're on this. I mean,
hopefully we don't lose subscribers from this, because
hopefully it just,
how people feel about Twilight.
Well, drop us a note. I want to
wanna
know what your
know. Yeah, we
favorite
wanna
movie
know
was, what your
if
favorite
you
book
are
was, who your
a
favorite Cullen is.
not your average gun girl
Are you
twihard,
Team Jacob or Team Edward? Like, we really need to know this.
Team Edward,
Of course, Team Edward.
obviously.
Obviously. That is amazing.
All right, so
So,
so that was movies. Speaking of movies and shows, I'm kind of curious, like I wanna know, what our listeners, like, watch television-wise, because like, I know, like,
yeah.
we don't watch a lot of, like, TV, like, I just don't have time for it, but I will watch. I think what I love so much about, and I know this started, like, with, like, Netflix or even pre-pandemic, is, like, the releasing of, like, an entire season at one
Oh,
time.
yeah.
You can, so that way I can just watch it all.
When they don't do it now, I'm annoyed. Like, if I have to wait a week to
Yeah.
watch an
I'm like,
episode.
I'm over it at that point. I'm like,
I just subscribe. You guys know I love true crime. True crime junkie here. Love listening to true crime podcasts, and I found one that really intrigued me. But they release an episode like every Monday, and I realize we do the same thing too. But
yeah, but
this
we're
is
not
this
having
is a
these
series,
suspenseful,
right?
like, stories.
This is like an
of-
actual series, and then once it's over, it's over. So
Yeah.
like, just release it all, and please let me
Yeah.
listen. I don't really want to wait a whole week to know. At this point, I've already gone and looked up who killed the girl because I don't
That's
really
how I
want to.
am,
I don't want to
especially
wait.
right? Because it's like news. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is in the news. I'm just going to read
Yeah,
about it. And
I
I
was
know
like,
what happens.
I'm not gonna wait any longer on this. But I will say so. For those of you who've been following us for a while, our good friend Jack Carr wrote a book called The Terminal List several years ago. At this
Yeah,
point,
we had
we had him on a SHOT Show in 2018.
Yeah, I believe
17?
it's episode 45. I did. Yeah, it's episode 45 where
Okay.
we talked to him.
You got to go back and listen to this because I mean,
That was in
we
the
knew
beginning.
Jack was going to blow up.
Yes.
Jack is blown up, and the Terminal List has blown up. But we were on the precipice of that. We got to have him come on our show before he was, this huge star, the next Tom Clancy. So we felt very thankful and very blessed to have had him on. And Jack's been a huge supporter of our show. We're going to get him back on the show again. But, he wrote this incredible book series called The Terminal List. And did he know at that point that they were going to make it into a movie?
No.
I can't remember if we talked about that on the show.
I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but I remember we had talked about it. Like, it was mentioned. I don't know if it was mentioned. We mentioned it directly on the show, but I remember having that conversation with him because we had talked about it.
And COVID kind of put it on hold because I think they got the green light before COVID. So Chris Pratt took on the project, directed it.
Because I think at that time, that's where he said, he's like, I'm hoping like Chris Pratt.
That's right.
Because we knew like that's who he was hoping to have on. And
yeah, that's
we
right.
didn't know until.
And he kept us updated. He was like, okay, it looks like Chris is going to do it. Chris is going to star in it. Looks like Taylor Kitsch's coming on board. And then he's like, looks like Amazon Prime just picked this up. And we kind of knew at that point, if Amazon Prime's picking this up, like, this is going to be huge. And he hit bestseller, like New York Times bestseller list with all the subsequent books. So we're like, this is going to be huge. This is going to be awesome. Well, it finally came out July 4th weekend, and I binge watched the whole thing.
I did not, but I finally finished it.
And I don't know if any of you guys have watched it. I don't know if y'all are into action shows or anything like that, but I mean, I partly watched it because I wanted to support our friend, but also I love our SEALs, and we've had so many of our buddies that are Navy SEALs and have come on the show, and I love shows about that, and so I couldn't wait to watch it, and it was so good. It deviated. I mean, it's been a while since I've read the book, and I remember it's deviated from.
So just real quick for anyone who hasn't seen it or is currently reading the book or is in the middle of watching it, there's might be some spoiler alerts. I know how people are so like hardcore about like their shows. I don't want to accidentally give anything away.
I wasn't gonna give anything away.
Yeah, but we're gonna talk about it, so I don't want to ruin the show. So just either fast forward or pause it until.
Well, what we've always loved about what Jack did is, so especially for the 2A community and the gun community, he was such a gear guy. He was always dropping specific gear. A lot of it was like our friends' gear. Dynamis was in the book.
Alexo was in the book.
He did. Yeah, he mentioned Alexo, and we were supposed to be in the show, but I'm guessing
I was watching really closely.
I watched really closely, and it didn't make sense for the character that we sent the clothes to. It didn't make sense for her to wear it, and the scenes that they ended up keeping in the show. So we didn't make the show, but that's okay. We made the book. But it was just cool because you'll be watching it or reading it, and you're like, he'll talk about SIG, the duty weapons from the SEALs, and they'll like mention like the SIG, what is it, the 226 or,
Right.
whatever it is. And then they use them in the show. Like if
That's like the cool stuff.
it is, it's like,
Well, I think too, like if you're not I don't want to say like even in the industry, but if you're not like, if you don't know firearms or don't have a basic understanding of how to use firearms, what you see on TV, you think is the way it works. And then once you start getting into, understanding firearms and know how they works, you start seeing them being used on television. You're like, that is
it kind of ruins it for you. Do you ever find yourself counting, like if there's, a Glock 43 and you know how many rounds
like,
a typical magazine is supposed to have, and you never see them reload, but they just keep continuing to shoot like 10, 15 rounds. You're like, they never reloaded that magazine. I hate that they didn't rack a slide.
Because like you start picking up on that stuff
and it ruins it for you.
Right. And I think what was so great about Terminal List is, Jack is on there and he's giving specific guided instruction to the actors, showing them like how the SEALs actually operate, how they use these tools, and how they maneuver in the different situations that the characters were in.
Well, you could tell that. I did watch how Chris was clearing a room, how he entered the room, how he would turn to the side, and I'm like, oh, you learn all this stuff if you've ever gone to a shoot house and
I feel like
done
it was
some
like
training.
when like we were like working with Dom and Dynamis and like watching him like kind of demo stuff. I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I really liked it. There were things I got done with the show and I'm like, I did not remember that happening.
Stuff in the book,
in the book. I need to go back and read it. And then, so Jack has been doing a lot of interviews lately and he does talk about that. He's like, yes, I mean, they
that's
do
what
deviate
they do.
from the books.
That's how they adapt books to TV.
But it's like the number one show on Prime right now, which makes me so happy, especially for all this. Well, and just like the woke Hollywood nature right now wants to cancel anything that has, this kind of stuff like this. It's not that there's any bad messaging or anything.
I think that's also what I appreciate about the show is like going into shows these days, there always has to be something, kind of political and like woke kind of
definitely
like
not
in
the Terminal List.
And
no,
like as soon as like I hear a line like that in a show, I'm just like, come on, I'm just trying to like escape. I just want to watch the show, and like there was none of that. I mean, it was done so well. There
were some characters though that I was like, I didn't like the casting. I mean, I think if you love a book, you're always going to struggle with that. You're always going to be like, that is not how I envisioned that person. I didn't like their chemistry. I didn't like this, I could get over it. I could remove myself and watch it. But
right. Whereas like, for instance, going back to like where I saw Twilight first, then read the book, like reading the book, I'm envisioning, Kristen Stewart as Bella.
Oh my God, we all hated Rob Pattinson as Edward.
That's funny because
he was like, nobody was happy about it, and he almost didn't do the movie because he got so much hate. And then afterwards, like he grew into the role. But like that was so not how I envisioned Edward Cullen looking, But kind of the same thing with the Terminal List. But it's great. I mean, if you're looking for a good binge-worthy show, I wouldn't watch it with my kids. It's pretty. It's pretty intense. They got some, some intense, like gruesome scenes.
But I like that they were. I think that's also what I like about these subscription service, whatever networks, where they're only giving like eight episodes. Is they're cutting out all like the stuff you don't need to know, like stuff that normal network would spend like a whole episode on.
Yeah.
That's none of that. Like you get to like, you're right into it. And that's what I love about the network or these types of shows. And this one was done so good. Although I'm curious, Taylor Kitsch, are those, I tried to Google this. I do too. Like, are those all hit, like those tattoos? Like,
oh,
what's up? Those were
intense. I remember I remember looking at his, like that whole back artwork. Like his back was like a canvas.
Part of it was like blacked out. And I'm just like, is that really for the show?
I doubt that those were all his tattoos. I mean,
I don't know. Look at what Ben Affleck did. Didn't he do that big, like weird, like
that was a real one?
Yeah, I think Ben Affleck's like has like a legit, like ridiculous, like eagle or some. His back is like tatted.
Oh wow,
with
I
something
don't remember
ridiculous.
That. Yeah, I don't. I'll have to look that up because I don't know. But I did notice that. It's just funny that you and I picked. Actually, as we've been talking about the show, we've both had like kind of the same criticisms, like the same things bothered us about the.
I'm going to talk about one thing. So this is a spoiler. So when they're on the plane, like after he is I think in the mountains, and he survives, and he's on the plane, and the pilot is tending to his wounds. Who's flying the freaking plane?
I said the exact same thing to my husband. I was like, what? Like, I don't know how. I know there's autopilot, but
You don't
I mean,
just
how
go,
accurate
you
is
don't
autopilot?
walk away. I
You-
can't imagine you just like flip the autopilot switch and you just go hang out in the back with your
Yeah.
guests.
I mean, and I just want to know too, like, he got some gnarly injuries in this show. I'm like, how do you keep moving? How
Is
do
that-
you
that-
go on? I mean, but do
I
our
feel like that's
seals
the
really,
seal.
do they really endure this? I mean, I know these are
think
like,
that's
we're talking
part
the
of, like,
toughest guys
That's why
probably
they
on the
put him
planet.
through like the buds training, I think, is to get them to that mental and physical exhaustion to then at that point when
Yeah.
you're about to break, you keep going.
That's insane. Yeah, well, I mean, he definitely did that in the show. So I wonder just how much of it, I always want to think, you know, Jack was a former SEAL. How much of his experiences and his actual personal training was he writing into
Right,
this story, you know? And I mean, just to know the what he's probably put his body through and then to be able to
These
write
are
about
all
that, you know?
great things that we're going to ask when we have him back on the show. to
Yes,
talk.
I know. I can't wait to have him.
We're
And
going to have
he's-
to use our friendship connection to be like, hey, what's up with season 2?
That's because the way they ended it, like I don't know. They haven't mentioned that there's a season 2. I don't know. There's like 5 books out right now,
Yes.
so if you start the series, be ready to commit because there's a lot of books, and so we'll see if there's going to be another.
So yeah, I'm curious, like,
series.
what besides that, like, if you guys are listening, well, I guess you can't watch because we're not putting this on video, but like, head on over to our Instagram page and tell us like what kind of shows you watch. We're just kind of curious to hear.
Oh yeah, I'm always looking for good recommendations and what podcasts are you listening to? What books are you reading?
Yeah.
I actually just finished a great book. Well, going back to fiction. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't get to read very often, and I started a book last night. And I finished it like
I
in
can't
one
believe
night.
you read so fast.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm just I am just a speed reader, but it's one of the girls. So she's in our like cute conservatives group, Carmen Schober, and the book is called After She Falls, and it is a incredible story about a female. She was an MMA fighter, gets into a bad relationship, gets married, and then it's like her redemption story and like finding herself again. And it's just an amazing, strong female character that. I just love the book. I just couldn't put it down. So I just finished that. So it's called After She Falls. So if you are just tired of reading like self-help books and business books or whatever it is you're reading these days. Because I mean, look, I tried before I had kids, I would try to have like a nonfiction, something that was improving my mind and something that was helping me in the business world, always going, I don't have time to do that anymore. So the fact that I finished this book in like a day and a half.
I'm gonna have to like get your tips on speed reading because that is not a strength of mine at all.
It was really good. So yeah, so let us know. Are you reading any good books? Do you have any good shows, any good podcasts that you're listening to right now? Because I'm always on the hunt for it when I have the time to do it. So
yeah, the podcasts I find like harder to listen to. It's easier for me. Like I'll play them when I'm at home doing stuff.
Well, I listen when I run. I mean, like that's kind of now what I
I'm
do.
sorry,
So
you listen to them while you run, Amy.
You want to know what I do? I put my phone speaker on and I put my phone so I can't always hear it. I have to press pause when I'm running down like our street where all the really noisy cars are. And lately I've just been like running around my neighborhood so I can listen to it. I'm listening
that's
to
that's when I ran in DC. I would turn my music on and I would have
everyone else gets to hear it too because I leave it on speaker and I put earbuds in my ears.
I don't know why people like I feel like some people get like really like upset about that, but I'm like literally you are running past somebody for like a second.
Oh, I don't care.
Who cares? I've
been doing it for so long. I haven't ran with earbuds in so many years at this point. I'm like, you're just gonna listen to my music or you're gonna listen to my podcast.
It's not like you're right next to them the whole time. No. I don't understand why people. I'm like, this is just the way it is.
I found this. It's a Hollywood true crime podcast, and this one's called The Execution of Bonnie Lee Bakley, and it is so interesting because it ended up outside of the O.J. Simpson trial being the #1 most expensive trial and case in all of Los Angeles. Yeah, and so like Los Angeles PD history. Very interesting story. So I have got, but that's one of the ones I was telling you. I said they didn't release all of them at one time. So I'm having each week.
Thank you, Google, giving me the answers.
Yeah, okay, but speaking of running, I mean, this is, so you guys know, y'all have listened to us for a while. And if you follow us on social media, runner safety clearly is very near and dear
Yes.
to my heart. It is why I started
Right.
Alexo Athletica. But like, it's a legit thing. I mean, women are dying when they go on runs. Just this morning, I got an alert from there's an account that we follow that kind of gives us like crime updates,
Right.
you
For
know,
our area, for Dallas.
yeah, for our area. And the first alert said body found at White Rock Lake. Well, I don't get down there as much anymore, but I've ran the White Rock Marathon a couple of times, and I love training down there because if you've been to this area, you instantly understand why people are willing to go run down there, even though they pull bodies out of this lake all the time.
After I moved here, and this year, like we have not like run down on White Rock Lake, but we go there. We go towards that direction. We are driving like past White Rock Lake all the time. I'm like, why are all these people dying or getting kidnapped or like they were finding bodies? Like, what is up with White Rock Lake? Because it is from the parts that I go through. It's really nice.
It's about if you take the outer loop, it's like 9 miles around. So you have a part of the lake that's on a really, really nice part of Dallas. And then you have a part that's in a not very nice area where a lot of the crime is happening. But we're seeing now like stuff is happening in broad daylight.
Yeah.
To men and to women. And, you know, it's just one of those things that like, I still want to run there, but you find yourself starting to think, okay, there are things that you can do to be a little bit safer. I mean, I wouldn't go running there at nighttime, right? But at this point, I mean, I would never go down there without my firearm. I would never go down there. There's a lot more situational awareness that I would be doing. There was a lady that just got robbed at gunpoint. It was like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And that's a very busy time at White Rock Lake. Like these criminals seem to be getting a little bit braver and don't care.
Well, it's because there's no what are the consequences when there's no cops or who are you going to call?
Well,
there's nobody to call because no one's going to show up.
I'm so torn because I'm like, women should be able to run wherever they want, whenever they want, without fearing for their safety. But at the same time, like, we need to take precautions, you know, and I don't think that I was talking to my husband about this because women think about their safety very differently. I was like, Drew, have you ever felt, you know, like your safety's threatened when you go running? He's like, huh?
Right.
Like has never crossed his mind. He actually used to go running at nighttime at White Rock Lake when we were training for our first marathon. And I would always be like, are you crazy?
Right.
Why are you going down there at this time? And he's like, what? Like, it just didn't cross his mind.
No, they don't have to think about that stuff because they're not impacted by it almost daily like women are. They're not thinking about, you know, and it's for us, I feel like we've been not groomed for it, but it's something that we're not used to, but you know, like from a younger age where like people are either catcalling us or like there's people trying to get our attention, whether it's good or bad. So we are been taught since a young age you need to be alert on who is trying to get your attention and what's their intention.
Yeah.
So at that point you start like, okay, boys are not taught that.
No.
Like they're not worried
about who's catcalling them. if a guy like catcalled my husband, he'd probably turn around and like make some funny noise, you know. Like, but also they can take care of themselves. If it were to escalate beyond a catcall, they're going to take care of themselves and they're going to be just fine, you know. But we've talked about this a lot. It's like women, it's hard to project confidence when you're outnumbered or you don't have the ability to take care of yourself. If you're to stand up to a man and he gets angry and he comes after you beyond the catcalls and you don't have a self-defense tool in your body, like, what are you going to do?
Right.
You know, so the
biologically
default,
made differently.
Right. And the default for a lot of women is then just to sink back and make themselves seem smaller to just make that go away versus projecting the confidence. And I remember like when I did start carrying a firearm with me when I ran, the confidence that I had to stare back at that person or to tell them to like go away, you know, or back off or whatever. It's like, I didn't have to turn my eyes. I could keep my eyes locked on them. I could tell them to back off, you know, and it's like, it gave me an extra measure of confidence because I knew like, look, I'm going to tell you no, and I actually mean it because I'll do something about it if you if you are going to threaten me, and it's like that is just, we need to see more of that. I remember like when like the Molly Tibbetts,
Yep.
there was Molly Tibbetts, there was Karina Vetrano. There's been several high profile cases in the last several years of like women joggers. And that's not to say like this the only times that it's happening. What I noticed with today's story, nobody was reporting on any of this stuff. There was simultaneously at the same time a woman who went missing a couple of nights before. And I think some people were thinking that this body that was reported, like that this site had reported they found was the same lady. And then the lady ended up being found safe and sound, which we'll get into that later. Because where was she for 2 days and didn't call her family or show up to work? She was a nurse.
Because obviously somebody called the police to report her missing.
Right. She just like didn't call her family for 2 days or show up at work. I don't know. But nobody was reporting on it. And I think that was what I was a little bit shocked about. It's like I was having to dig because people kept sending me the story. Like, where's this nurse? Did you find out who the body was of the person? And I'm like, no, but let me Google it. No information. Nobody was reporting on any of this stuff. And so it's like, this stuff doesn't make the news. It doesn't make headlining news. So we know that it's happening. I feel like
some of these things that I've heard that happen is like 3 months later, they're like, oh, the woman who went missing in X, and this is not just Texas, but just like in the country, like who went missing in whatever, like Memphis, Tennessee 4 months ago, like she left her house and never came home, finally was found. I'm like, I didn't even hear like anyone was missing. This poor woman, like where's the media buzz over? And I'm curious how some of these cases actually end up going viral, so to speak, in terms of like how we're hearing about some of them. I think it's just like that perfect storm of who in that city starts sharing it and then how it kind of gets picked up.
Yeah, I don't remember how the Molly Tibbetts story got.
No, but I remember that one. That kind of was like all over the news.
It was everywhere. Like everyone, I mean, it was everywhere. And so, I mean, it baffles me that we still have people that will, go out on runs and do all of the things that we say, hey, don't do, like make yourself less of a victim if you possibly can, because there are people out there that are just evil and they're going to do bad things to good people, that nobody walks out of their door thinking this is going to happen to me today.
No, of course not. And I just think more and more people, more and more women just need to be getting into that mindset of thinking proactively about the personal safety. And I think like you said, like women do think about it, but I don't know if women, are they actually doing something about it? And
I don't know, because I think a lot of them think about it after the fact, instead of like being proactive.
Because I think it goes into I need to think about my personal safety. I probably need to know how to do this, X, Y, Z. But I also, live in a safe neighborhood and it's not going to happen to me.
Well, I mean, you did a blog on runner safety. Yep. What are the top things that you like to tell women to do? Because you had some really good tips on there.
First and foremost, I say this a lot. We say this a lot. So I will continually say that I sound like a broken record, but I will never, ever, ever stop preaching this, is to get off your phone, ditch the headphones. Situational awareness is number one. And like Amy was saying before, like you were saying, if you really want to listen to a podcast, just ditch the headphones, turn your volume up on your phone, stick it in one of those like arm sleeves that they have or whatever, your Alexo pockets, wherever you can hear it, and you'll be fine. Okay, you're going to miss like a second or two, but it's not the end of the world. Turn it up louder. You don't need to have your headphones on. Like that is, by putting your headphones on, you are losing one of your critical senses, and that's hearing
instantly. Well, and it also distracts you to where you're not, like you might be running and focusing on the road ahead of you, but you're not looking around. When I don't have those earbuds in, I know who's around me.
Because you can hear things. And then my other one is that I started doing a long time ago, I think maybe when apps and like the smartphones started becoming more popular and apps are coming out, but a lot of the apps like Map My Run and some of these other workout fitness apps that allow you to kind of route out your course. You can share your course, you can share your location with loved ones. So I always map my run ahead of time. Like if I know I want to run now, let me say this real loosely. If I decide I want to run 3 miles, back when I was trying to, be a runner, I will map my run so I know like where 3 miles are, and I will either scout it out. Like for instance, when we moved to Dallas, and I knew, okay, well, I want to kind of try to get out and either walk or run a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what's like immediately right outside my house? I look like where the 3 mile radius is, and then I just kind of drove it with my car to kind of check out the neighborhood and see, okay, this seems fine. If I run at this time, it seems quiet.
Yep.
But I think using those apps to kind of scout out.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people are like, oh, I just want to like step out of my door and go run. Sure. But like it takes literally 5 minutes for you to just go check out the area you're going to go run in beforehand and see what it's like, just to make sure you're not like running in some sketchy area. Like it always was funny to me in DC. There was like an area that you could get from when we would always leave DC a certain way, like going up to Maryland. And there was the Capitol was right there, and there was hotels right there. And all the hotels that we would see on, Expedia, wherever you're looking for hotels, would be like, oh, 1 mile from the Capitol, great views, blah, blah, blah. But it was in the worst neighborhood. And we would see people, I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. Somebody needs to put on these reviews. And like, sure, while it's 1 mile or it's, right there within steps of the Capitol, like you are not in a good neighborhood. I would not walk from your hotel to this area. So I think that's why being able to have a visual on where you're going to be going. Yeah. It's just, I think it gives you peace of mind. And sure. Some of these apps allow you to share your route, allows you to share like your location, like at that time. So I think that's important for people to do, because I think sometimes people will go for a run. I mean, especially I'm sure for like you and Drew, when you guys are doing and training and doing your long runs, like sure you have a route, but sometimes you're like, you know what, let's just bang this left today. And so, being able to have somebody know where you go versus.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I'll either say, hey, I mean, at this point, he knows like how long I should be gone for. Unless I told him, hey, I'm going to go hit 11 miles and I'm going to be gone for 2 hours. If I'm not back and if I was gone for 5 hours at a time with no communication, that's a big red flag. Like somebody knows what my normal routes are, how long it usually takes me, and if I'm not back within that time. So just even letting somebody know, hey, this is how far I plan on going. Right. This is where I'm going to go. And even though they may know my route, like I still change my route up a lot because not that I think people are watching me, but I just think it's very safe to change your route, maybe change some of the times that you go so you're not as predictable if there was somebody that,
because it's not even necessarily someone has to be really watching you, but there are just in your normal everyday life, like you notice like, oh, my neighbor always leaves around 8:00 every morning or whatever. And it's just, if your neighbor's picking up on that, somebody with ill intention who's hanging out or looking can easily pick up on that, especially if they see you one time and like, oh, her, I that's the girl I want. Yep. And they'll just start following you.
And I think a lot of people don't. I've seen women like run with things in their hands, like, mace or like a little taser or something. For me, I never wanted anything in my hands. And it was always, if for someone to start thinking about like running with a gun, first off, they're like, that has to be the most uncomfortable thing in the world. Like, how do you do that with athletic clothes? Because you usually are going to have like a tighter top or, or something. And that was a big motivating factor, obviously, for me when I started Alexo, because it was so hard to find. Before I was carrying an Alexo, I had Kydex holsters. I had, I wasn't I didn't find a belly band that I liked or anything like that. But like, running with Kydex was kind of a deterrent for me because it wasn't comfortable, know?
And athletic wear is in general, the fabric and weight of athletic wear is not strong enough to hold the weight of your firearm, whether you have a Kydex holster or not. It's just not. They ride down.
It was going to sag or it was going to flop or it was just not going to like still it. So, that was obviously like a big thing that we had to spend a lot of time figuring out the technical aspect of like, how do you keep the firearm in place, but also how do you keep your waistband in place from flopping over? And then how do you have enough pockets and spaces? You think about all the things that we need to take with us on our run.
Right. I always bring my phone, my keys to my house,
credit card,
and then my ID,
Mm-hmm.
and then a self-defense tool. Where am I going to put all this stuff?
Yep. I mean, I always have my credit card or money with me too, because I'm like, if I find myself really hot and thirsty, I'm going to stop at CVS and grab a drink, or I just don't want to ever get caught without the ability to,
Right.
pay for something. And then like, so where are you going to put all that stuff? And then if you don't run with all that stuff, like, are you really, really prepared for things that could happen on your run?
Right.
So just making sure that I had the places to put all this, but most importantly, just making sure that I had a safe way that I could actually carry my firearm, that it wasn't going to fall out, and people ask me all the time, like, how do you carry your gun in your Alexos? Like, is there retention? And I'm like, I run marathons with my gun before.
Right.
It doesn't budge. It doesn't
No, it doesn't move at
all. Like it stays in place, and I don't care like really how you're carrying when you run. At some point, like, could you maybe get some chafing, or could you maybe get like some sweat? Yeah, you're going to sweat. Even if you wear a belly band, you're going to sweat profusely with that.
I sweat when I carry my gun and I'm just in shorts going to the grocery store. So.
Right. Like, and you've always said this, you're like, it's just a part of the lifestyle.
Right.
Like, there is not going to be one way that's like, oh, this is so comfortable. And I'm never going to have to adjust my gun, or I'm never going to have to wipe sweat off of my stomach because the gun hit. Like, it just doesn't happen. You're just...
there is always
give up some of that comfort,
right, of carrying that. Like, when you are carrying, you never forget you're carrying,
right? And that's not a bad thing.
No,
I mean, it's good to be reminded.
I am always making an adjustment. I'm sorry, like, we're women, we have skin and we have fat and we have all this stuff that like, depending on what I'm wearing, when I go sit in the car, I'm like, my freaking grip of my gun is like pinching in between the bottom of my freaking bra and the skin. I'm like, that.
It's not comfortable.
There's nothing I can do about that. So of course I have to just push that little bit of skin. Like, I think people, think that it's, because, we make it look easy. And that's the point, is like, we want people to understand that you can make it part of your lifestyle. And we're trying to provide tips, and we try to, show ways how you can incorporate this into your lifestyle. And yes, it looks simple. And once you put in the time and have the patience and start actually practicing and living that lifestyle, then it will become simple. But it never just starts out like, I'm putting this gun on, I'm going to live my life and everything is great. And this is so.
When I first started carrying on body, I'm like, well, first off, I thought every single person around me was instantly going to know I had a gun on my body. I was like, you could see it. Everyone could see it.
You are so like,
it's just
you're like
it's
on like
neon
alert,
sign.
like on like red alert of just your own self consciousness of like, you have the biggest spotlight on you pointing to your gun when you're out, and you're just like, but once you get over that, because that's what I say. So I want to talk about that real quick, but going back to like the running. So, ditch the headphones, map your route and share your location. Carry some kind of self-defense tool, whatever you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable carrying a gun, that's fine. But you need to have something. You need to get, mace, taser, flashlight, something that you can access and know how to use. That's the most important thing. Just because you threw it you have it in your hand or you put it in your pocket, if you don't know how to deploy and use it, it's no use to you.
Yep.
And just, be aware of your surroundings and trust your gut. So if you're running and you pass somebody that just gives you a weird feeling, don't be afraid to turn around, look at them, and then either go a different direction, leave the situation. And like, as you had said before, like, one of the things that you started doing when you carried a gun and you were making eye contact with people that you pass, whether you're carrying a gun or not, in general, everyday life is one way to let the person know that you see them. So that way, it puts you into that position of being less of a target, because if someone's coming after you, they want somebody who is an easy target. So if you've made eye contact them, it shows they get the perception that you are confident. They get the perception that you've just noticed who they are, and they're like, nope, thank you. Sure, it's not going to be 100% every single time, but those are the tiny little things that you can be doing to help put you in a better situation.
Yep.
So, I have an Instagram reel that talks about running safety. I have a lot of those tips on StompMeTactical.com, and then kind of talking about, like, when we were going back to like thinking everyone would know that you
Mhm.
are carrying. Like, I have a couple articles on Untitled that kind of talk about just ways that you can easily adapt to this lifestyle. And, I talk a lot about it on my Instagram and on the blog as well, is that like being a woman is one of our best assets to carrying, because no one
Right.
would ever suspect
Yep.
that we would be carrying a gun, let alone like know how to properly use it to defend ourselves. And I
Yeah.
think we need
Or
to,
think that we're going to use it
right,
on them. I
exactly.
think they probably would shock them
hmm
if you even said, "Stand back, I have a gun and I'm not afraid to use it."
Right.
That alone would shock people, and I just think I love that, and I do hope that you guys actually go and read this. We just released a article as well. We did like 25 tips, because summer running is a big
hmm
thing. Like, people love to
Once
get
the
outside,
weather,
get their
yep, they want to start.
sunshine. Let's be honest, just to get, the Texas heat is a little hot to go
Yeah,
running in, even though I
I do
love
not
it.
know how you run in this heat.
Well, I love it, but I'm like, just getting the sunshine and getting the
Yeah.
fresh air and getting outside. So we know a lot of you are out there doing it. Take the time to go and read these
And it doesn't have to
posts.
be right. Like if you're walking,
Yes, just
running,
by
like,
yourself, exercising outside, and we know that over 50% of women choose those two forms as their preferred method of exercising. So that is a lot of women that are out
my
there.
mom would like power walk
Heck
at like
yeah.
7:00 at night when it got cool, and she always carried like this stick with her as like her self-defense tool.
Yeah.
And I think it's just
Whatever you want, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Just-
a lot of people do that too for dogs, like to fend dogs off. I used to see a guy run around our neighborhood. He always carried like a big old stick with him. I was like, why is that guy carrying a stick? Because the dogs. Oh, it's good. So it's not always like it's just the people that you have to worry about.
Right.
It could be animals and other things.
Well, I know that like I've talked to a few, followers that have talked about just where they live. They deal with coyotes and whatever
Mountain
else
lions,
is
cougar,
whatever. I'm just like, that is wild to me.
Yeah.
Like that you have to even like worry about
rattlesnakes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that. Where do I not run into one of those?
Where I used to live, out in the country. I will show you. One day I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to go make a video reel showing people like where the idea of Alexo came from, and just how like
yes, that would be
creepy.
Awesome.
Like this back, it's beautiful, and it was on this beautiful back road, and it was my favorite place, but it's in the middle of nowhere. Well, I don't know. Now maybe there's like construction all all over the place.
No, I think it's probably
booming.
Everyone's moving to Texas.
Everyone's moving out there, but it was just like land and open land for miles and barbed wire fences. It's just, you never think anything's going to happen to you out there because you never see cars out there.
Right.
And, and yet it did. And so maybe I should like go show a video reel sometime out there. But I do hope that you all go, like, I know on the article that we just put on Alexo, there were 25 tips. That's a lot of tips to read through. That's a lot of tips. But there were some on there I was like, oh, I haven't even thought about some of that. And a lot of them that I put a lot of them into practice, but there were some things that, I think you're going to learn some stuff if you go and read this article. So definitely.
And even like, with that article, the articles on SMT, I know like, everyone may know what we're saying and have heard it before, but what I can tell you is like, it never hurts to read it again, to kind of freshen your memory and get it in, and kind of just get that into your head. Cause you may be reading being like, yeah, I know that. But what's going to happen is going to get ingrained into your subconscious because you've seen it and you've heard it so much that you never know when that little piece of knowledge is going to get popped out into your brain when you're going to need to use it. It's just one of those things that you just can't ever get enough of. And I think before we wrap up, or did we want to talk about that Roxanne girl who went missing real quick? Yeah, let's just have a little chat, like these, because we did say this episode was kind of like what we talk about. So, she went. So this girl, Roxanne Reza.
I don't remember what her last name is, but this story popped up today, right after the alert that there was a body found at White Rock Lake, and this.
Like everyone was looking for this woman who had gone missing like 2 days ago. 2 days ago. But then all of a sudden, like, oh no, she's been found, and no, it's not the body that we thought was.
And they said that the last time she had been seen was running at White Rock Lake. So naturally, everybody assumed that was her body that was found. And then they just announced, nope, she's safe and sound.
Yeah.
No more explanation than that. We got no.
Where did she go? Did she just like run off with her friends to Cabo for 2 days and not tell anyone? Because my question is, someone had to have reported that she was missing for the cops to start putting all these like bolos out and stuff or whatever.
Family, I think her family did. I mean, again, right now, like the reporting has been so all over the place that how do you actually know? But if she's an ICU nurse, like, did she just not have work? Or maybe she didn't work those 2 days. So
she was like, I'm going to take this time off and go do.
Did she then finally just see her picture plastered everywhere and decide I probably should call my family and let them know that I'm alive?
If that's you? You're like, oh yeah, I just went to my friends for a couple of days and all of a sudden there's all these like,
I mean,
like, does she not have a phone? Weren't people blowing her phone up being like, hey, where are you?
They said the last ping that it got was there at White Rock Lake. So that's why it was weird. I'm like, so did it? I feel like of questions.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but I feel like she's doing something shady.
Well, I mean, who knows? I just feel like and maybe I'm the weirdo, but like my family, if I didn't talk to them for a day, if someone didn't hear from me for a day, they would be called. I mean, like, something has happened to me.
Right.
Because there's just no, like, I just didn't talk to my family or my friends for like a day. I mean, everybody knows I keep in contact with people and, but like, I guess some people can just go missing for 2 days and nobody know where they are.
Yeah, that's weird to me. I just think it's weird that like.
Well, also she went out running. This was something that hit me too. She went out running at nighttime around White Rock Lake. So I know I'm sounding contradictory because this is where the conflict comes in for me, where it's like, yes, sometimes it's 106 degrees outside in Texas. You need to go running at 9:00 at night because it is.
I used to think the same thing like in DC because I would see people like leaving to go running like late at night, but then I keep thinking, well, if she is an ICU nurse, maybe that's the only time.
That's the only time. Or maybe you have kids, or maybe you're training for a marathon and you have to run at these weird hours. And so I'm like, yes, you should be able to go running at 9:00 at night. But also there's an element that says, okay, well, maybe we should use some discretion as to where we go running at 9:00 at night. I mean, no, I don't want to go run on a treadmill, but maybe that's better than going down at White Rock Lake. Or at the very least, if I just really want to go run at White Rock Lake at 9:00 at night, not going down there without some tool on my body. I mean, and to me, mace ain't cutting it. Mace and a taser aren't cutting it for me. I mean, I know people like those options, and it just that would not set my mind at ease.
Well, because I think
time of night.
No, but I think you're also at that point where you have been using your gun. You're comfortable with your gun. You're in your gun pat. Well, you grew up here, so like I feel like you were like basically born with a gun. But
they don't hand them out at the hospital here. I'm like,
I really thought that's what they did here.
Your birthing gift in Texas,
But like for some people, that's going to be like their only option.
Sure.
But they have to use something, but also but I feel like too, it's just as simple as just making smart decisions.
Right. I mean, like if mace were my only option in a taser, like if I lived in a state or like a city or a county that I couldn't carry in and mace was my only option, I probably would just make the choice not to go run at that time. I would try to move things around that put me in a better position to be as safe as possible. Again, could something happen in broad daylight in a safe area?
Of course.
Absolutely it could. But I just felt like I would be lessening my chances at that point of, putting myself in a potentially dangerous situation. And again, it just stinks because I hate having to tell women that. And because I think we should go wherever, whenever. We're empowered. Like we should be able to do that. But there is, with your freedom comes responsibility, and like you have the freedom to look at all of the possibilities and make the best possible decision, and again, maybe 9:00 is the best possible decision because that's all you've got. So just try to be as prepared as possible, but I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get any more details on that story. We haven't even found any details about this other body yet. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with that. And
because there's been like mixed reports. That wasn't a body that was found it was an old story, but then somebody like sent that,
Well,
took a photo.
regardless, what we do know about White Rock Lake is that they have pulled multiple bodies out of the lake.
Yeah,
This year
I'm not
alone,
going to go to that lake.
they've had.
I will continue just driving by it.
They have continual like armed carjackings. Like we hear about this stuff all the time, and then there's just this draw. It's just this magnetic draw of like, I want to go run around that
I
lake
want to see
because
what
it is
why people
so
are.
beautiful. I mean, you love it. So I ran the 50th anniversary White Rock Marathon in December, and
hold on, I ran that marathon too for 1 mile.
It was amazing support, and I could not believe that you guys showed up and did that. But you get it. Was it mile 10?
Because we left you right before we peeled off, and I believe like once we left you, you had like another like mile before you were about to hit like the start of like the White Rock Lake.
That's true. And then it's a 9 mile loop, 9 to 10 mile loop around the thing. And at that point, like I turned off all music. I turned off my phone. I was like, I just want to soak in all of this because it's so pretty. And you realize like it's this, you see why people want to go down there and I don't know, take a chance, risk it. I don't know.
I feel like though you were with like, I don't know how many people on the marathon.
Wasn't worried about it during the marathon. Not worried. No, there's cops like stationed all over the place down there. That is, I wasn't worried about it during the marathon. But when you're training, you like to kind of get a lay of the land and see where you're going to run. And so, if you are going to go down there, if you're from Dallas and you're going to go run in these areas, or you've got places that this kind of stuff happens wherever you live, I mean, just take some of these precautions and be as careful. I mean, I want the stories now. I can't wait to hear the story of, women fends off would-be murderer because she pulls her firearm, or whatever, like pulls her.
And I think those are happening.
Tool.
We just know that the media is not going to share that, which is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate because maybe less people would do it if they know that they're going to get confronted with somebody fighting back.
Right.
Or stopping the threat. So.
Well, and so before we wrap up, then we want to know, like, if you have a story that you want to share of when you were out running or walking that, you got into just, I don't know, a sketchy situation or had a situation happen, send it in. We'd love to hear it and just kind of read through and hear kind of what, you've experienced yourself and how you dealt with that. And we can, read it and share it with our audience, the other reader or other listeners, so they can maybe take something from that too. And
yeah, you're not alone. 80% of runners and walkers have mentioned that they felt that their safety has been threatened at some point. That's a lot. I mean, and that ranges from uncomfortable catcalls all the way to they lost their life. And so you're not alone if this has happened to you, if something has made you uncomfortable. I mean, you're in good company because the chances are most people in this audience have had something happen to them. So, but we just want you guys to be proactive and not reactive. We say it all the time, proactive, not reactive.
Exactly.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was fun.
This was fun. We got to give you some safety tips. You learned a little bit more about us that hopefully you like and not dislike. If you
Hopefully
really
it doesn't bother
Twilight.
you that I cry on Breaking Dawn 2 when Bella shows Edward her thoughts for the first time.
Oh my God, that's the greatest.
Every time for 1,000 years. Oh, it gets me every time.
We should just really talk about though that like see, this is the problem. We can just keep talking about Twilight. The Twilight soundtrack. Like you cannot tell me that is not a great soundtrack.
It's a great soundtrack. Great soundtrack. Yeah. It's one of the best. I legitimately downloaded all of them and I listened to all of the songs. They're so good. And you know what's crazy? Last note and then we'll say bye.
Yeah.
The first like soundtrack to the first movie, like everything was so indie. Like it was all independently shot and like Rob Pattinson wrote a couple of songs.
Doesn't he sing?
He does. He sings. He plays. He's very musical.
I think it's in the song that's playing while they're in the restaurant. Is he singing that song?
He is singing that one. He sings I mean, if I told you the scene, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. Like when he's like having to suck out the venom out of her arm.
Do you think we're giving a spoiler alert here? Because I feel like either people have seen it or people are not even interested. So I think
Okay,
we're
spoiler alert. Okay. Well, if you have not seen Twilight, sorry about that. But yeah. So I actually kind of liked the more raw indie side of the soundtrack, but the rest of them were really good too. So
well. Also, let us know, too, if you liked this episode.
And next time we'll talk about The Greatest Showman, because we could literally spend an entire episode talking about our love for The Greatest Showman as well.
That's another good one. Things we talk about when we will call this things we talk about when we're just chatting on our weekends.
We're just hanging out,
which is what we love. Well, we love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Subscribe. Leave us a review. Head to Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Leave us a review. Leave us a rating. It's really a simple and free way to help support our show and let the algorithms and all those things let us know that we're a show that you like. And you can also, if you want to support our show financially, you can buy us a cup of coffee or a glass of Veuve. We love that. We've been getting some great glasses of Veuve being bought for us from so many of you, and we super, can I say super one more time?
You can.
Super appreciate that. It really, helps keep the show running because we do it all ourselves and pay for our equipment and all that stuff. So you know what? Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Not Your Average Gun Girl Show and its related companies, Alexo Athletica LLC and Stami Tactical LLC, shares information that may potentially have legal implications for its listeners. A reminder that laws vary for each state, and we encourage listeners to seek local legal advice to understand applicable laws. Any items, services, products, and advice mentioned during the Not Your Average Gun Girl Show should be used at your own discretion in accordance with your local and state laws, and you should follow applicable manufacturer's instructions. Not Your Average Gun Girls, Alexo Athletica LLC, and Stami Tactical LLC cannot be held liable for your actions based on the information shared.